My ex called me a failure, until he realized I was his new boss. He once laughed at my dreams, calling me useless. Now I'm the boss signing his paycheck, and he's choking on his own pride. The last time I saw Ethan, he was laughing in my face, calling me a failure in heels. I remember standing in the rain outside his apartment, holding a box of my things while he told me I'd never survive without him. I didn't say a word. I just looked at him one last time, memorizing that smug smile, the same one I'd later see vanish in a boardroom under fluorescent lights. Back then, I was 26, broke, and terrified. He'd convinced me to quit my marketing job to focus on us. Translation: focus on his startup, unpaid, while he played CEO. For a year, I worked on his pitch decks, investor reports, even branding ideas, all while he took the credit. When I finally suggested launching my own consulting business, he laughed. You can't even balance your own bills," he said. That night, I packed my things and left with $200 in my account and a heart full of humiliation. But humiliation is a powerful fuel. I got a temp job at a small digital agency downtown, answering phones, making coffee, absorbing everything. The CEO, a sharp but fair woman named Priya, noticed how I handled crisis calls like mini-campaigns. Within 6 months, she made me a junior strategist. Within a year, I was leading my first team. I didn't date. I didn't rest. I built myself from the ground up, one late night at a time. 3 years later, I founded Aeroline, a creative agency that specialized in brand recovery, the same thing Ethan's startup desperately needed after a failed product launch. Funny how life circles back. When the acquisition email came in from corporate, listing the smaller companies under my supervision, my eyes froze on one familiar name: Echelon Tech, CEO, Ethan Pierce. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. But then, the corner of my mouth lifted. Life wasn't just giving me closure, it was giving me a front row seat. The following Monday, my assistant, Jordan, slid a folder onto my desk. "You'll be meeting with the CEO of Echelon Tech at 10. They're one of the underperforming acquisitions." His tone was casual, unaware of the storm that name stirred in me. I took a deep breath, flipping through the financials. Echelon's numbers were worse than I'd expected. Overspending, poor branding, zero market adaptation. Typical Ethan, big ego, little strategy. But the part that really made me smile was the new company structure. Echelon would now report directly to me. At 9:59 a.m., I straightened my blazer, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and walked into the glass-walled conference room. He was already there, leaning back in a chair, expensive watch on his wrist, fake confidence in his grin. For a second, he didn't recognize me. "Morning," I said, setting the file down. He stood, extending his hand automatically. "Ethan Pierce," he said. "CEO of Echelon Tech," I finished for him, shaking his hand firmly. "Yes, I know. I'm Ava Collins, your new regional director." The pause that followed was delicious. His smirk faltered, eyes narrowing just slightly before he forced a laugh. "Wait, you're the one taking over the division?" "That's right," I replied, smiling sweetly. "I'll be overseeing your company's transition under Aeroline management." For the first time since the day he threw me out, Ethan didn't have words. He sat down, jaw tight, pretending to read through my presentation slides. But I could see it, the panic beneath his polished demeanor. "So," I continued, flipping a page, "we'll need to evaluate your leadership structure, including whether your current position still aligns with our long-term goals." He looked up sharply. "Are you firing me?" "Not yet," I said calmly. "But I'll need to see measurable results within 30 days. Consider it your probation period." For the first time, I saw it, the fear behind those arrogant eyes. And in that moment, I realized I didn't just want revenge. I wanted him to watch me win. The following weeks were almost cinematic. Ethan tried everything to reassert control: last-minute emails, urgent calls, unnecessary meetings. But this time, I wasn't the girl taking his orders. I was the one giving them. During our first joint strategy session, he came in 20 minutes late, Starbucks cup in hand, muttering something about traffic. The old me would have smiled politely. The new me didn't even look up. "You're late," I said, voice steady. "Next time, I'll start without you." The team glanced between us, sensing the tension but saying nothing. Ethan forced a grin, sat down, and started talking over one of my analysts. I let him ramble for 2 minutes before cutting him off. "That's enough, Ethan. You've made your point, and lost ours." Every time I corrected him, his jaw tightened. Every time the team turned to me for direction, his ego deflated a little more. It wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about balance. For years, he had silenced me. Now, every word I spoke had weight. By the second week, his bravado had cracked. He lingered outside my office one evening after everyone left. "You're really enjoying this, aren't you?" he asked, leaning on the doorframe. I looked up from my laptop. "Enjoying what?" "Seeing me like this. Answering to you." I closed my computer slowly. "I'm enjoying seeing results. The rest is just a coincidence." He smirked, trying to find his old confidence. "You haven't changed much." "Actually," I said, standing, "I've changed completely. You just never paid attention long enough to notice." For a brief second, his expression softened, like he wanted to say something real, but then he nodded, muttered a good night, and walked away. When the door closed, I leaned back in my chair, exhaling. This wasn't over. The board review was coming up in 10 days, and Ethan's future, his career, his pride, depended entirely on my decision. And I had every intention of making him earn what he once threw away so easily. By the time the board review approached, Ethan was unraveling. His usual cocky tone had turned brittle, his charm replaced with late-night emails full of excuses and promises. I'd seen that pattern before, back when we were together. He always waited until it was too late to change. Aeroline's headquarters buzzed that morning. Executives filled the glass hallways, voices sharp and urgent. I arrived early, calm and polished, my presentation ready. Ethan arrived 10 minutes late again, but this time, not with a coffee cup, just dark circles under his eyes and a desperate look he couldn't hide. When the meeting began, he tried to reclaim control. "We've been restructuring based on my team's new vision," he started. I interrupted gently, "Actually, that would be our restructuring plan, developed under my direction." The room fell silent. I clicked the remote, advancing to the next slide, a detailed report showing Echelon's numbers after I took over operations. Revenue up 14%, engagement doubled, expenses down 22%. The board members murmured approvingly. Ethan shifted in his seat. "Well, those improvements reflect my leadership too," he said, his voice shaky. "Of course," I replied smoothly, smiling just enough to twist the knife. "It takes a great leader to recognize when someone else needs to take charge." A few executives chuckled quietly. Ethan's face turned pale. He fumbled through his notes for the next 10 minutes while I watched, unbothered, every inch the woman he once called a failure. After the meeting, as people congratulated me, he lingered in the corner, pretending to scroll his phone. When everyone left, he approached. "You made your point," he said, low. "Which one?" I asked, turning to face him. "That you're better than me." I looked at him for a long second. "No, Ethan. I just became who you said I'd never be." He swallowed hard, glancing away. "You really hate me, don't you?" "I don't," I said quietly. "You're not important enough for hate anymore." He didn't respond. Just nodded slowly, eyes glistening with something that looked a lot like regret. The day after the board meeting, Ethan didn't show up to work. No calls, no emails, nothing. The team assumed he was sick, but I knew better. He'd always run when things got uncomfortable. Still, I had deadlines to meet and no time to nurse his ego. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message read, Corner Cafe. 1 p.m. Just talk. Please. I stared at it for a moment before replying, 10 minutes. When I walked into the cafe, he was already there, sitting by the window. No tailored suit, no watch, no mask. Just Ethan, smaller, tired, almost human. You came, he said, surprised. I'm not here to reminisce, I replied, setting my bag down. Say what you need to say. He took a shaky breath. You were right. About everything. I treated you like an accessory because I was afraid you'd outgrow me. And you did. The honesty caught me off guard. For a second, I almost saw the man I once loved. You didn't just lose me, Ethan, I said softly. You lost the version of yourself that could have grown with me. He nodded slowly. I know. And for what it's worth. I'm proud of you. Something in his voice cracked. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger, just a quiet kind of closure. Thank you, I said. But you don't need to say more. We're not the same people anymore. He gave a faint smile. You know what the irony is? Back then, I thought success was power. Now I see it's peace. And you've got both. I stood, adjusting my blazer. Then maybe we both learned something. He didn't stop me when I left. Outside, the wind was sharp, but it felt clean, like the city itself was exhaling. I walked back toward the office, my heels clicking in rhythm with a truth I'd waited years to feel. I wasn't his failure. I was his lesson. When I returned to the office that afternoon, Jordan handed me a sealed envelope. It was dropped off for you, he said. Inside was Ethan's resignation letter, short, polite, almost painfully formal. Effective immediately. No drama, no explanation, just an ending. For a long moment, I stared at it. No satisfaction. No victory dance. Just stillness. Maybe this was what closure really looked like, quiet and unglamorous, like a door closing with a soft click instead of a slam. That evening, after everyone left, I stood by the big window overlooking the city. The skyline shimmered with gold, and I thought about the girl who once stood in the rain clutching a box of her things. She would have given anything for this version of me, steady, confident, untouchable. A soft knock on the door pulled me back. It was Priya, my old mentor and now the CEO of Aeroline. I heard about Ethan, she said gently. I smiled faintly. He resigned. I didn't even ask him to. Priya nodded. Some lessons don't need to be taught twice. She leaned on the doorway, studying me for a moment. You did good, Ava. You didn't humiliate him. You just reminded him who you've become. That's real power. Her words settled deep inside me. After she left, I turned off the lights, gathered my things, and headed out. The elevator ride down was silent, just the hum of machinery and my own heartbeat. As the doors opened, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall, confident posture, calm eyes. No trace of the woman who used to beg for validation. I smiled softly to myself. I had built a life so far beyond his imagination that even his absence couldn't shake it. And that was the sweetest kind of revenge there was. The next morning brought a strange calm. The office felt lighter, freer, as if the air itself had been cleansed of arrogance. Ethan's nameplate was gone from his glass door, his desk already reassigned. The team worked with quiet efficiency, as though they'd all silently agreed to move on. Midday, an email arrived from HR confirming the official leadership transition. My name was now listed as Chief Executive Officer, Aeroline Regional Group. I stared at the subject line for a full minute before it sank in. I wasn't just managing Ethan's division anymore. I was running the entire operation. Jordan peeked in, grinning. "You did it," he said. "All those late nights finally paid off." I smiled, still processing. "It doesn't even feel real." "It's real," he said. "And honestly, nobody deserves it more." When he left, I allowed myself a rare moment of stillness. My phone buzzed with messages, congratulations from clients, LinkedIn notifications, even a text from my father, "Proud of you, kiddo. You proved them all wrong." I leaned back in my chair, the sunlight spilling across my desk, and thought about Ethan again, not with bitterness, but with a strange sort of gratitude. If he hadn't broken me down back then, I might never have rebuilt myself this strong. That evening, as I left the office, I passed the reception area and saw a familiar figure through the glass doors, Ethan, standing on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets. He didn't look like the man who once believed he owned the world. He looked human. When he saw me, he gave a small nod, a gesture of acknowledgement, not apology, not pleading, just recognition. I nodded back, calm and wordless, before walking past him into the fading orange light. There were no dramatic goodbyes. Just two people who had finally learned their parts in each other's story. Weeks passed, and the storm of corporate transition settled into routine. Echelon Tech was thriving under Aeroline's direction, and my name had started circulating in business magazines as one of the top 30 under 35 to watch. I didn't chase the spotlight, but it found me anyway. Success tends to echo when it's earned. One evening, after a long day of interviews and back-to-back meetings, I received an unexpected email. No subject line, no signature, just a few simple words. "I finally understand what you meant about respect. Thank you, for proving me wrong without destroying me." I stared at the screen for a while, knowing exactly who it was from. Ethan. For a moment, memories came rushing back, the heartbreak, the ambition, the exhaustion, the rain that night I walked away. But instead of pain, I felt peace. I typed a short reply. Lesson learned. For both of us. No bitterness. No final jab. Just truth. I hit send and closed my laptop. Later that week, Priya called me into her office. "You know," she said, "a lot of people rise after being underestimated. But very few rise gracefully. You did." I smiled. "I had a good example," I said. "Of what not to become." She laughed softly. "Fair enough." That night, I went home, opened a bottle of wine, and sat on my balcony watching the city lights. They flickered like tiny reminders of everything I'd built, from pain, from loss, from doubt. I realized then that success wasn't about revenge or validation. It was about rebuilding yourself so completely that the version of you they destroyed could never exist again. And I had done exactly that. A few days later, Aeroline hosted a gala celebrating our record-breaking quarter. The ballroom sparkled with glass chandeliers, the air thick with perfume and polite ambition. Cameras flashed as clients, investors, and executives mingled, clinking glasses to the rhythm of soft jazz. I arrived in a tailored black gown, my hair swept up, calm and composed. People greeted me with smiles, handshakes, admiration. For once, I didn't feel like I was pretending to belong, I did belong. As I moved through the crowd, I caught a glimpse of someone near the back. Ethan. He wasn't supposed to be there, but apparently, one of our mutual contacts had invited him as a guest of another firm. Our eyes met across the room. For a moment, time folded in on itself, the past and present colliding silently. He approached slowly, stopping a few feet away. "Congratulations," he said softly. "You really did it." "Thank you," I replied. "You look better." He gave a small, self-aware smile. Therapy helps. So does humility. That made me laugh. I'm glad you found both. He hesitated before speaking again. You know, back then I thought success was about being the smartest person in the room. But tonight, I realized it's about being the most aware. You've always been that. I just couldn't see it. People only see what their pride allows, I said. But we grow. He nodded slowly. We do. Then, after a pause, goodbye, Ava. Goodbye, Ethan. No tears. No bitterness. Just two people finally closing a chapter that had been left open too long. When he left, I turned back toward the lights, the laughter, the music. The night felt warm, alive, endless. For the first time in years, I wasn't defined by what I'd overcome, I was defined by what I'd become. When the gala ended, I stood on the terrace overlooking the city skyline, the hum of conversation fading behind me. The air smelled faintly of rain and champagne, the scent of something ending and something new beginning. I thought of the girl who once cried herself to sleep in a cramped apartment, replaying every cruel word Ethan had thrown at her. She'd believed him when he called her a failure, believed she was small, unworthy, forgettable. If only she could see this now, the skyline glittering below, the power in her calm, the peace in her silence. A soft voice pulled me from my thoughts. There you are. It was Priya, holding 2 glasses of wine. She handed me one, smiling. You know, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can tell when someone's at the start of something big. You're just getting warmed up. I smiled, feeling that truth settle deep in my chest. Then here's to beginnings. We clinked glasses, and for a moment, everything was still, no ghosts, no grudges, no noise. Just gratitude. As I left the venue, I passed the lobby mirror. My reflection caught the light, confident eyes, steady shoulders, a woman carved from every "you can't" she'd ever heard. I stepped outside into the cool night air, my heels clicking against the pavement, the city stretching endlessly ahead. For the first time, I wasn't chasing success to prove someone wrong. I was walking toward it because I finally knew I deserved it. And behind me, somewhere in that tower of glass and memory, the word failure lost its meaning forever.